Howdy, y'all, and welcome to my presentation, Singing for the Red, White, and Blue, Nationalism and Country Music After 9/11. My name is Laz Devine. I'm a junior music education here at Kennesaw State University. But what you didn't know is that I'm also Kennesaw State University's cowboy in residence. Yeehaw. I'm joking, but I would really love to have that on my talent card if Kennesaw, you can make that happen for me. As these very old and embarrassing photos of me show, I was born and raised in a very Southern and country environment. So I grew up on country music, both old and new country. And I noticed that in recent years, country music is different now than the music my mom would play every Sunday morning when I was growing up. And to no one's surprise, I'm not the only person who noticed this. So these are memes from Twitter, everyone's favorite source. And while they are a bit extreme, it does show that there's not only a difference in the content of music, country music, but how the public receives it. So what happened? And why is it there's huge distinction between old country artists like Johnny Cash and new country artists like Blake Shelton? Well, there's a reason for this shift. Before we examine why country music changed, we must discuss what country music is and what we define as old country. Country music, or America's music as referred by many sources, was created in the 1920s. And while the debate of what is country music and what does it stand for is as old as the genre itself, the common themes of country music is nostalgia, home and family, unity, and patriotism. For the longest time, country music was created to reflect the experiences of working class citizens, promoting the ideals of boosting morale during wartime. Since the genre was created in the South, country music reflects mainly Southern experiences. So during the World Wars, when many of the soldiers were Southern, country music began to reflect those soldiers' experience promoting the war. However, during the Vietnam War, mainstream music started to reflect pacifist ideas, and country music joined in on the bandwagon. Pete Seeger's performance of Bring Them Home on the Johnny Cash TV show in 1970 is one of these many instances of country musicians advocating for peace and looking out for the American soldiers. It's good to note that country music isn't inherently pro-war or anti-war, but it's a reflection of the majority ideologies of the American South. This is important to note because this will come up in the future for country music and in the past and present. From the 1960s to the 1990s, country music continued to provide this music about unity, family, and small town America to the South while making political statements addressing other social issues in America. The shift of country music didn't occur overnight, but it shifted due to a historical event that will never be forgotten in American history. I would like to take the time now to say that the images on the next slide do have images of the 9/11 attacks. If you are sensitive to those images, please turn away and I will let you know when I move on to the next slide. All right, moving on. On September 11th, 2001, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were struck by hijacked airplanes in a terrorist attack. While one plane missed its target due to a passenger revolt, where it crashed into an open field instead, the attacks overall left nearly 3,000 people dead in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. When the attacks on the Twin Towers were broadcasted across the nation, Americans responded with fear, anger, grief, and sorrow. The public went into a crisis, and as a result, the United States government invaded Afghanistan to combat terrorism. This year, 2021, is the 20th anniversary of this event, and as I mentioned before, it will never be forgotten. I'm now moving on to the next slide. While emotions were high, people started to turn to country music, which already had these themes of unity, patriotism, and family, and the birth of the country music anthem has started. Songs were like Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning by Alan Jackson and Where the Stars and Stripes and Eagles Fly by Ari Tippin became instant hits. And old songs like God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood spiked in popularity after 9/11, despite being made in 1984. God Bless the USA, for those who the title's not ringing a bell, it's the Proud to Be an American song. However, the most notable songs out of all of these anthems is Toby Keith's Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. It's also known as The Angry American, and the rift between old and new country music it caused. The shift of country music began after the popularization of Toby Keith's The Angry American song and the boycott of the Chicks, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks. Toby Keith's song was released in 2002 after the death of his veteran father and the 9/11 attacks, and the lyrics display his anger, frustration, and grief with the attacks. The most notable verse of the song is this verse. Justice will be served and the battle will rage. This big dog will fight when you rattle his cage, and you'll be sorry that you messed with the US of A, because we'll put a boot in your, it's the American way. So obviously these are anger-fueled threats, and just the verse provokes those who are not sided with America with just this hatred, as evident as we'll put a boot in your butt and this dog will fight when you rattle his cage. At the time of the song's release, many Americans who were just as angry definitely saw themselves in Toby Keith's words, and it led to an overwhelming amount of public support for the Afghanistan war. However, not all country artists hopped on the country national anthem bandwagon. The Chicks' lead singer, Natalie Maines, openly commented on Toby Keith's song, stating how she hated it, and it makes country music sound ignorant. Natalie Maines also made a public comment during a 2003 performance in London in which she shared, "We do not want this war, this violence, and we're ashamed that the President of the United States is from Texas." Her comments received backlash from Americans, which eventually led to many country fans boycotting their concerts, destroying their CDs, and no longer playing their music on radio stations. With the blacklist of the Chicks' music, the public made it known that country music was no longer part of the anti-war movement like it was in the past. As stated best by Catherine Caraway, the censorship placed on the Chicks serves as a message to the rest of the country world. There was no room for a difference of opinion, effectively destroying the tradition of outlaw country. Country fans began to buy more into nationalist and patriotic music, and due to demand, country artists began to shift towards more conservative political fan base. Of course, even if country musicians agreed with the Chicks, patriotic music was in high demand, and the rebellious outlaw country that once took billboards by storm were no longer able to hit the charts. So this is one of the most popular images of the debate, and it's a photo of Natalie Maines, the lead singer of the Chicks, wearing a shirt that says FUTK to the Country Music Awards. And of course, when she came out wearing that shirt, a lot of people were like, oh, is she saying FU to Toby Keith? She does say it represents friendship united together with kindness. However, at a later interview, after the whole debate ends, she does confess that it does mean FU Toby Keith. Just thought that would be a fun little tidbit to put in there. However, the country music anthem was not here to stay. As the Afghanistan war continued in the years past, Americans, for lack of better terms, began to start caring less. Humans only have so much empathy in them, and continuing to worry about the war on terrorism caused many Americans to look more towards pop music. Needless to say, the nationalist country music began to decline, and around the 2010s, party music was on the rise. Now, party music is indicative of a post-war era. However, the Afghanistan war didn't end until 2014. Remember that quote I said earlier? And this is why I mentioned it, because country music isn't inherently pro-war, anti-war. It's a reflection of the majority ideologies of the American South. And many Americans in 2010 just wanted happier music after grieving for so long. Another thing to compare it to, the Vietnam War was 10 years long. The Afghanistan War is 14 years. So after 9 years of 9/11, a lot of people started to feel tired and just wanted to listen to something a little bit more upbeat. Between the yearning for a better time and desire to sell more records, country music entered the subgenre commonly known as bro country, my favorite title for a genre ever. To get more popular, country became what it did in order to sell records, whether it was to praise the US of A or to talk about non-controversial topics like drinking, girls, and trucks. Song like Blake Shelton's song Sure Be Cool If You Did, Luke Bryan's Country Girl Shake It For Me, and Florida Georgia Line's Cruise replaced the country music anthem and became what most new country music is well known for today. This is a quote from an interview of Blake Shelton, and the response to bro country was not very taken lightly. Bro country didn't contain the traditional themes of unity, patriotism, and the working class like it did before, and instead had themes like objectifying women. So it was considered extremely controversial. So Blake Shelton in an interview said this. He said, country music has to evolve in order to survive. Nobody wants to listen to their grandpa's music. I don't care how many of these old farts around Nashville going, my God, that ain't country. Well, that's because you don't want to buy records anymore. The kids do. They won't want to buy the music you were buying. I will say it's not fair to categorize all country music from the 2010s to now as bro country, since most country music in 2021 is considered contemporary, and contemporary country takes a lot of its inspiration from pop and its pop counterpart. In order to sell more records, as Blake Shelton said, they had to change their way in order to survive. So many older country singers have turned to pop music, or they'll have pop artists featuring in their own songs. It's also notable to add that country music is now pushing away from the country music anthem and what it stands for, and this country music blacklist that it started with the Chicks. Country music now is more accepting of different artists with other controversial ideas. Stars like Casey Musgraves, Little Nas X, and the return of the Chicks are pushing the patriotic, nationalist boundaries that have been the premise of country music for the past 20 years. And it's showing that country music can be all-encompassing and accepting. In a way, country music has come from this full circle. From the creation of the genre through many, many wars and today's billboards, country music has been defined in many ways. The birth and death of the country music anthem highlights country music's lifelong search for the nature of its genre and the industry's continuation of its own redefinition and introspection. So at the end of the day, the question still remains, what is country music? Because in this PowerPoint, I never really gave you a definition, but it's best said by Lindsay Ellis, who said, it's America's music. Thank you guys for my presentation. These are all of my sources cited here. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm really passionate about this topic, and I'm really glad that I got to share all of this with you. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.